Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to the council meeting of this evening, December 16. Just a couple of notes. The public that are in attendance are requested to sign in the attendance sheet. Please turn off your cell phones. And the meeting is being audio and video recorded. This time we're going to stand singing of O Canada, followed by the opening petition by Councillor Ganane.
We gather together here today intent on doing good work. We seek to represent fairly and well those who have given us this task. May our efforts be blessed with insight, guided by understanding and wisdom. We seek to serve with respect for all. May our personal faiths give us strength to act honestly and well in all matters before us.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillors, are there any changes in orders of items on the agenda? Councillor Rayner.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to move item 6.1 to be done after 14.1, if that's possible, Mr. Mayor. 14.1 is actually 6.1. Normally in presentations, they are presentations that are not put on the agenda for approval. This one apparently has had a lot of effort and work done by members of committee, and therefore probably will be passed without a problem tonight. If it doesn't, I will be shocked, but then again, maybe not. So if it doesn't pass, then I would say that the presentation would be necessary. Otherwise, it's just repetition of what committee has already done, which is really not accomplishing anything.
I'm not just going to accept that.
I didn't think you would.
Because there was another suggestion that we move up 14.1 to behind 6.1. So,
And I would like to see that reversed, because there's no sense of 6.1 if 14.1 is already going to be passed, which it probably 99.9% is. If not, it's going to be pretty weird.
thank you, Councillor Ganane.
I would just like to suggest that we keep it the same, as I know that there are two members of the public who came specifically to hear the presentation on the strat plan. So,
Okay. So what I'm going to do is, that was a suggestion. Do I have a seconder for Councillor Rayner's suggestion to move 6.1 back? Any seconder?
I'll second for discussion, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
That's why we seconded, do we not?
I don't know about changes in order of items, whether they're debatable.
Just for point of clarity, Mr. Mayor.
Okay,
that's the reason why. I'm sort of confused on why he needs it right behind 6 point. Like, what's the, if I can refer to Councillor Rayner, why do we need it behind the 6.1?
Okay, it's basically the voice of committee speaking, except it's not committee that's speaking, but it's basically saying exactly the same thing that they went through, which is repetitious. Therefore, if 14.1 gets approved, then it means that what's necessary in the presentation to show is unnecessary, because they already know that, and it's approved. So there's no sense tying up any more time. It's over. So it's just a matter of being more efficient, because otherwise we're making this presentation, we're going to approve the thing anyways, and it's just doing things twice, duplication, for no reason.
Okay, I will take offense to the fact that you're assuming that it's going to just get approved automatically. So, you know, we do fulsome discussions. Nothing's a foregone conclusion. So just to respect the due process and democracy, we entertain all things. So that assumption is wrong.
No, I disagree. Mr.
However, you've made your case. Councillor Trombetta, he gave you an explanation. Are you satisfied with that, yes or no?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
You,
Just one more comment.
go ahead.
In this particular case, hours and hours have been spent by committee in order to get this where it is today. For a committee to not to improve their own work would seem rather ridiculous. So
Then-
obviously, I'm saying this is a different case. We do not know what the outcome will be. But based on the fact that there has been more work on this than any other project that the township has taken on, they're not going to turn themselves down. So this is going to go through. Let's be honest about it.
Councillor Rayner, in fact, I think you're completely mistaken on how this whole process has gone. We have not seen any, the councillors here have not seen any final draft. This is being presented to us. So yes, we've had inputs into this. We haven't seen the final draft. So it would be ridiculous to assume that we've already approved something and we're approving it again.
Mr. Mayor, but on this report that I've got here in front of me, that states the PowerPoint presentation is based on report RFD-COA-06-219. And if I may read this, it says recommendation report RFD-CAO-06-219, the strategic plan, that dated be received and approved, and that the attached report, Schedule B, which you have seen, be adopted as hereby implemented. So what you've got here is already available for you to look at, and it's already set for you to approve. It says to be adopted in here. It doesn't say to be altered, changed, or further through the discussion with the presentation. It says you have it. It's here to be implemented and approved. You've already got it. You've got your final.
Real quick, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Trombetta.
So I'm reading this slideshow that Aaron Ohosky did presented. I did find some things that I have some issues with.
Yeah.
I'm going to probably make an amendment later, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to probably, to be frank, I'd like to see that amendment done when the time comes.
Yep.
And I'm not sure if I'm going to approve it until that amendment gets done. So I need to see that slideshow first and then go to the item so I can possibly make an amendment and hopefully I can get the consensus of council.
Correct.
So I'd
And
like to
that's the
at least see that.
process.
Okay.
No, nobody's suggesting otherwise. This is, for a councillor who's been a councillor for as long as you have, I'm surprised that you find this one, of all the years that you've been in.
This is the most blatantly obvious that there could.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. Councillor Riley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councilor Trombetta. I personally would like to hear the presentation. I feel like more questions are going to come up through it. I understand Councilor Rayner is frustrated. I do say this with the utmost respect, but Councilor Rayner, you were not part of this process. You made it very clear you didn't want to be part of this process. So I kind of take offense that you want to deprive us that privilege of having that presentation made from it. So I would ask you politely just to let us go forward and continue with this presentation and keep your peace.
Are there any other comments? I'm going to take up a vote that, on the motion, because it was moved and seconded. All in favor? Yeah, moving it back.
Of course it wasn't going to be accepted.
Yeah, okay. So you're just trying to create
I'm just
trouble?
trying to
Yeah,
let you know
okay.
that I'm
Thank you.
alive
Yeah,
and well.
I appreciate it. And
Thank you.
we're all noting your disposition. Any other changes in order on the items on the agenda? Seeing none. Are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or conflict of interest? There is the one noted in our agenda, Councilor Trombetta, on item 8.1 of confidential minutes of the special council meeting held on November 13. Any others? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, are there any members of the public present who wish to address items on the agenda as permitted as 6.7? Seeing none, at this time we have a PowerPoint presentation by Aaron Ohosky of Boulevard Strategy with respect to the Township of Lincoln Strategic Plan. Welcome, Aaron.
Is it going to be on the screen? It's up. Julia just has to.
Could I make a few?
Yeah, so Matt, go to Madam CAO for a couple introductory comments and then we'll move to Aaron.
So, I guess, in recognition of the work that's being done and in recognition of the fact that council approved the budget for a corporate plan, Aaron representing Boulevard Strategy, has been our key consultant working with us through the process. And tonight she is presenting the results that came out of the November 20th session, which was an open session for an open council meeting for open to the public. And while we didn't have any members from the public there, we certainly had the opportunity for people on many stages of this process to provide comments. So I'm really quite delighted, even given the discussion that's taken so far tonight, to have Erin here and to bring this project to the final stages. And what she's going to be doing right now is outlining the process and where the final strategic plan is recommended to be, as all our staff reports are always made with a recommendation, and then it's council's duty to do what they choose to do with the report. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam CAO, and good evening, Mayor Bilsma, members of council, senior staff. It's my pleasure to be here with you this evening to present your corporate strategic plan for your consideration and potentially approval this evening. So this plan is the product of a 3-month-long accelerated process where you work together to consider issues like safety, roads, infrastructure, growth, economic opportunity, and of course, heritage and preservation of your rural identity. And I was honored to be part of this process with you. So if we can review this process, and this slide, of course, won't be new to you. This was a 6-phase process that began in the mid-September and is culminating this evening with presentation to you. Phase 1 was understanding your community, where we participated in individual phone interviews with each of you, with members of the senior team, also reviewed some foundational documents. In Phase 2, we brought that forward to you on October the 8th, where we talked about what had been developed so far. We focused on themes, we focused on success statements, and that was developing our strategic framework. In Phase 3, we undertook employee engagement. We did 2 focus groups with employees on October the 25th, where we heard from them on what it means to them to work for the Township of West Lincoln. They also provided some ideas and suggestions in terms of what council had developed thus far. In Phase 4, we went out to the community, and we did that in a number of ways. We launched a digital campaign where members of the public could participate through the township's social media channels. We also went out to the public, and we undertook public consultations at the West Lincoln Community Centre, at Wellandport Home Hardware, and at the Casterville Library. In Phase 5, we met again on November 20th to refine those priorities, and we're here this evening for your consideration and potential approval this evening, right on time and, of course, on budget. So an important part of this process was aligning what we heard with the township's vision, mission, and values. So you remember from the outset of the process, we talked about in our interviews on what success looks like to you. What success looks like in 20 years for the Township of West Lincoln, and what does success look like at the end of this term? We also went out to your employees and asked them, what does it mean to you to work for the Township of West Lincoln? We took all of that information, we reviewed it against the existing vision, mission, and values from 2012, proposed a refresh, which you had considered at your meeting on November 20th. So the vision before you this evening is the Township of West Lincoln will be a safe, thriving, connected community that offers an exceptional way of life, facilitates opportunities for residents, and fosters a strong sense of community. The mission that came out of this process is the Township of West Lincoln provides responsive customer service and quality planning, infrastructure, programs, and services that reflect the needs of the community we serve. And the values, these came out of primarily our discussions with your employees, but also discussions with you on November 20th. There are 4 values: service, respect, leadership, and teamwork. Under service, we take pride in providing responsive, friendly customer experience and continuously improving our interactions with the public. Under respect, we believe in the role of every resident, employee, and member of council in making West Lincoln a great community. Under leadership, we understand our roles, are empowered to contribute our ideas, and are recognized for our contributions. And under teamwork, we commit to supporting each other and learning together in a positive work environment. Onto the plan itself, the Township of West Lincoln Corporate Strategic Plan that's before you this evening has 25 strategic initiatives organized under 6 themes. And those themes are strong transportation connections, support for business and opportunities for residents, strategic responsible growth, local attractions, community health and safety, and efficient fiscally responsible operations. And I'll apologize because I think some of the font on the next few slides might be a little bit small, but of course these are all outlined in Schedule B to the report and as well on your screens. So the first theme is strong transportation connections. The goal here is directly derived from those success statements that you developed on October 8th, the goal being that West Lincoln has transportation infrastructure that is safe for motorists, cyclists, and pedestrians. Networks are well maintained and connected within our community, with other Niagara communities, and with major highways. The initiatives that you have identified as strategic initiatives you'd like to pursue over the next 10 years relate to the escarpment crossing, a Highway 20 bypass to reduce truck traffic in downtown Smithville and improve connections to industrial land, completing a roads needs study and setting targets for the maintenance, rehabilitation, and improvement of township roads, as well as building safe, active transportation networks, including sidewalks, bike paths, and trails. The second theme is all related to economic development, support for business, opportunities for residents. And the goal here is that West Lincoln has a positive image and a strong brand that supports local businesses and attracts new industries. We've created an environment where it's easy to do business, resulting in more opportunities to work in our community and continued support for agriculture as West Lincoln's largest sector. The initiatives you've identified as strategic initiatives for the next 10 years are streamlining processes for business and development, wanting to make sure that the Township of West Lincoln is seen as a good place to do business, creating a targeted, proactive approach to attracting new industry, leveraging existing and potential future employment lands, advocating for increased investment in rural broadband, investigating water and sewer services on employment lands to create shovel-ready sites, and then exploring incentives in the downtown core to generate increased commercial activity there. The third theme, strategic responsible growth, relates to the way West Lincoln will grow. And you've indicated that you want West Lincoln to grow strategically and responsibly, welcoming new residents and businesses while respecting the heritage and rural character that people value. 2 strategic initiatives you've identified under this theme facilitate growth that builds complete communities and provides that balance between commercial, industrial, and residential, as well as encouraging a variety of housing options that are supportive, appropriate, safe, and affordable. The next theme is local attractions, where West Lincoln has amenities, programs, and services that bring the community together to celebrate small town and rural way of life. And here, the strategic initiatives that you've identified for the next 10 years are support programming that's relevant to the community's needs with the completion of the West Lincoln Community Center, improving local parks and trails, and of course something that came out strongly through the community consultations was a new playground at the Caisterville Library, as well as new opportunities for programming and sports events. Reinvigorating community halls, particularly the halls in Wellandport and Caister, through new facility upgrades and new partnerships, and establishing a farmers market in the summer and the fall. Community health and safety was the next theme, where West Lincoln continues to be a safe community where all residents are supported to thrive throughout their lives. The initiatives here relate to building that new fire station 2, replacing and addressing deficiencies, continuing to work with your partners in West Niagara, other municipalities, as well as local physicians to advocate to ensure that redevelopment of West Lincoln Memorial Hospital, updating the Public Works building and yard, making improvements to pedestrian safety by introducing increased traffic calming measures on trails, near schools, community facilities, downtown, and any other places where pedestrians congregate, as well as in future, this was a long-term initiative advocating for a physician recruitment strategy, recognizing the shortages in physicians in your community. The final theme is efficient fiscally responsibility. And you identified that you take pride in the Township of West Lincoln as a lean organization that uses sustainable, innovative approaches and partnerships to streamline processes, deliver services, and manage infrastructure assets. And of course, the largest initiative to come out of this particular theme was an asset management plan that prioritizes your investments based on an evidence-based approach. implementing new software and programs to modernize the way you deliver services, investigating improved branding and a strategy to increase communication with residents, promoting local activities and events, and then in the future, develop streamlined customer service to ensure the township continues to achieve responsible resolution. With the growth in your community, the nature and the volume of service requests coming in are changing, and that is requiring new approaches to the way you deliver services. And of course, related to that is new systems and approaches that will scale service delivery as the community grows. On November 20th, you also assigned timelines to each of those initiatives. And within the context of Schedule B, you'll see some initiatives are identified as priority, short-term, medium-term, and long-term. So the time horizons associated with each of those priority initiatives are slated to be initiated as soon as possible, as the ones you've identified as priorities. Short-term initiatives are to be initiated within 3 years, medium-term within 5 years, and long-term within 10 years. And all initiatives, all 25, the timeframes associated with them have been identified under both Schedule A and Schedule B to the report. The next steps are outlined in the CAO's report as well as the technical report. We're recognizing that the Townships of West Lincoln's corporate strategic plan provides a roadmap for the organization, its investments and service levels. At the same time, it's a flexible document, recognizing that if new opportunities or challenges emerge, the township has to stay flexible and nimble to be able to address those. So the recommendations for implementation relate first and foremost to communicating what those strategic plan is, business planning and alignment with corporate plans, as well as alignment with resources and budgets, assigning accountabilities throughout the organization, progress reporting, evaluation, and adjustment. And I know this slide has a line, but really it's a cycle. Adjusting as necessary and then going back to that first step of communicating any changes and going through the process as frequently as needs to happen. Some thank yous are in order. So if you'll indulge me, I'd first like to thank residents of West Lincoln who took the time to speak with us, whether it was through the digital media campaign or out in the community. We really appreciated their candor and their honest feedback. I'd like to thank employees at West Lincoln for providing their feedback on October 25th and participating really enthusiastically in the process. I'd like to thank the senior team for their guidance, to your CAO Bev Hendry as well as Jackie Thrower for their support throughout the process, but also thanks to council. Thank you to everyone who participated for your leadership and for your collaboration. It was an honor and a pleasure to be part of this process. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aaron, for that presentation. I think it's an excellent, indicator of what we put together, and pretty much, I think we all recognize that it's a culmination of that work. So I'm going to go to Councillor Trombetta first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say thank you, Aaron, for presenting. I appreciate it. It was 12 hours of grueling work with a lot of dots. It was a good presentation, and I want to thank you for coming out those 2 sessions and helping us through the process, and also the other lady that was there. I don't know her name at the moment. Natalie, just like to thank her as well. I'm going to have further questions. So usually in this process, usually the chair or the mayor is saying, hold your questions because it's coming back on the agenda. So I'll probably call you back up with some other things, but this was just the time that I wanted to say thank you and for those 2 sessions. It was a very learning, informative session, and I just want to say thank you.
Any others? Okay. Oh, Councillor Reyna.
Thank you. Through to Aaron. Your vision and mission statements that you put up there, are they to replace the one that we have right now?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's the intent, yes.
Yeah, because the one we had before said to preserve our natural resources, which you can't do with urban boundary expansion, and you did not put that in there. So that one is much more relevant to today than this one. This one is protecting our heritage. That one's saying, it's not part of the discussion right now.
And I thought of you when we were writing that.
So, anyways.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Aaron, thank you so much for the presentation at this time. We're going to go run through some business, and then we'll get into a good, lively discussion, sounds like, a little bit later on in the evening. At this time, I'm going to ask Regional Councillor Witteveen to come to the Mike and give us an update of things that are going on at the region.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council, and I'd like to echo the same sentiments to Aaron for walking us through that process. Strat plans are always good to review and gives the municipality some direction for the future. So I was glad to be part of that process. So this evening, I'd like to start by giving an update on some ongoings at the region. We're busy working on the Canada Summer Games that the Niagara region will be hosting in 2021. Construction has already started to take place at Brock University, the Henley Rowing Center in St. Catharines, and also the Rowing Center in Welland. A total investment for these games for operating capital budget is $146 million. The Niagara Sports Commission has a project. This project has an economic impact at the lower end of about $180 million in our community. Supports about 1,100 jobs and will equate to about $57 million in salary and wages for this event. And it will support 4,600 athletes, 80 hours of television coverage, and well over 30,000 visitors here in Niagara region for the duration of the event. So the official groundbreaking took place this afternoon at the Niagara region headquarters. So work is being done for this event, and we're looking forward to driving this and then having the facilities for sports tourism in the future. The mayor and myself have been attending weekly meetings over the past feels like last 2 months, dealing with our budget process at the region. And so just some high level information, and you probably, some councillors have read this in the local papers. Our Niagara Police Services requested 40 more frontline officers, and part of that is a lot of the officers are doing more and more paperwork, so we're losing those hours out in community service, and it was felt that and with changing times that 40 more frontline officers were needed, which hopefully will we will reap some of those benefits in our communities by having more more feet on the ground in our communities. With our Niagara Regional Housing Court Service and Peninsula Conservation, we came in nicely at a 2% increase, so that was great. We see a wastewater came in at about 5.15, and this is mainly to do, and I think we'll see those increases over time, because in the past, money was not allocated properly towards this aging infrastructure that we're playing catch up, but we have to do it in a responsible manner, just like here. Waste management, we all know that there's a renewed contract, and we're going to see, most communities will see about $9 per household for the collection starting. The collection will start in October, but we'll see an increase of about $9 per household in this service. And mainly to do with that is, it's 9 years after the last contract that capital costs have increased, fuel has increased, and with this contract, employees are going to be paid a living wage, which in the past contract wasn't. So with that package, we're going to look at that as an increased cost, for that, and also our cost of recyclables that we've been dealing with has been depressed over the last few years. So trying to find new markets for our end products. So to me, I know it's a challenge. We're going every other week, and that there's an increase, but everybody forgets to explain that with the past contract, we were saving $4 million a year from the other contracts. So there was savings, and now we have to pay the rate. So after much deliberation with the mayor and council, and kind of bantering about, I guess we'll call it side services, the region had agreed upon about a 5.9% increase on the region's portion of taxes for 2020. It probably wasn't what we'd like to do as an increase, but also if we understand that 1.5% of that increase was towards the long-term care facilities that are being rebuilt in our community. So that's I believe that's a one-time fee. Maybe the mayor can enlighten us on that. So at the end of it all, on a lighter note, we had after our budget passed, we had a presentation by Heddle Shipyards, which is based out of Hamilton, and they purchased the Port Weller dry docks, and we're looking for support in their bid to be the third bidder for there's 6 Canadian Coast Guard icebreakers that are to be built over the next number of years, and this company has track record in Thunder Bay and Hamilton and now St. Catharines, and they were looking for a letter of support from council towards, I would believe, the federal government in this awarding of the contract, and there would be somewhere around 400 employees for the next 20 years if successful of getting 1 or 2 of these Canadian Coast Guard icebreakers. So and then, of course, the spin-off jobs would go out with material and people needing a place to live and all the things that would be needed to support it. So, and in closing, I'd just like to thank everybody, or wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a wonderful New Year. And I enjoyed working now 1 year into the term with members of council, and look forward to working with everybody in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Riley and then Councillor Rayner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Whittabine, I just wanted to thank you as well for the past year of reporting to our community from the region and all the great details and work you've done. I do appreciate the information regarding the frontline workers, our police officers that we're going to eventually be seeing. As we know, our community definitely lacks police services, so I think this is a very good opportunity to support that, if that's in some way, in any shape or form, is going to help better police our community. I did have a question for you. When you mentioned $9 per year, or sorry, $9 per household, I'm assuming that's per year. That's not like an overall average of everything else. Is that per household, but per year, or is that like?
No, it's just for the initial, for that increase for the service. So it's not compounded. It's
Okay.
just that's the cost from what we presently have moving forward.
So it's just $9.
Yeah,
and
$9 that will just be the single time increase for the life of this 7-year contract.
Okay, so thank you very much for clarifying that. Yeah, that's all I have for now. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Rayner?
Thank you. Through the regional, Councillor Whittabine. Councillor Whittabine, were one of the ones from the region who approved this 5.9% increase?
Yes.
I'm looking at it from the side of people who are retired and having knocked on a lot of doors, all the doors in my ward, and of people who are very, very concerned about even making enough income coming in based on their limited pensions, which is usually CPP or old age, and a lot of them don't even have a pension from the company. They were very concerned with the massive increase in our taxes due to this MERS. Now we've got a 5.9% increase from the region. And the cost of living is less than 2%. So we've got a situation where, since you've been on council in the last year, you supported having our garbage pickup reduced in half and a 5.9% increase in our regional taxes. It's scary what direction this is going in. I was hoping, as a representative of the township, that you would be there pushing for the things that the people in this township want. They don't want their garbage reduced, their garbage pickup reduced, and they certainly don't want to be smucked with a 6% tax increase. They were hoping, obviously, that the representation that goes to the region is in support of the needs, wants, desires, and the affordability of the people who live in this township. And increases like this are certainly not in the direction that I'm sure any of us expected. I personally am shocked by this number for a couple reasons. Number one, the region seems to be throwing the money around pretty badly. I'm on the NPEI board of directors, and I go to Niagara Falls. I go through past Allenburg, and lo and behold, we've got another wasted $3 million roundabout being built on Highway 20. We don't need it. It's not essential. It doesn't serve any purpose, but it sure uses a lot of money up. Then I go down to the stoplights there, make a right-hand turn, and I look, and there are 5 regional employees out in the field. They're putting up a snow fence. And when I drove by, all the T-posts were in, and the fence was sitting on the tractor, ready to be put up. I went to the meeting. 2 hours later, I came back on that same road. Those 5 guys were sitting in the regional truck, and not a single line of that snow fence has been put up. So I'm looking and saying, wow, am I getting a bang for my buck? Who's in charge? Who's looking after these guys? Estimate between 80 and 100,000 apiece when you include benefit. We got $500,000 of employees that have been sitting around for 2 hours, have been doing absolutely nothing, and you're gonna slap me with a 5.9% increase? For what? What am I getting? I'm not getting anything. My son and I put up a couple 100 feet of fence in a couple hours. I have snow fences. 5 regional guys, and they don't do anything in 2 hours, and they're sitting in the truck? So I've got a major concern with the representation going to the region. I want you on our side. It appears with losing our garbage pickup and having a 5.9% increase, you are not on our side. You're working for the region.
Did you have a question, Alderman Rayner?
Yes,
Oh,
I have a
okay.
question. Down the road, will you be looking after the better interests of the people in this township to try to minimize and not take stuff away from us and not give us increases, but go in the reverse direction?
I'm doing my best, as the mayor is, and we are sitting there, we're looking at the region as a whole, and we are one municipality, 1/12th municipality of that region, and we get services like roads and water and sewer through the region. So those are things that I'm and the mayor are looking after, is that we have good infrastructure for our community. So yes, I am doing my best. This wasn't an easy decision, as I stated, but past councils have failed to step up and do the proper thing, and we've been left with these issues to deal with. So either we neglect the responsibility we've been given, or we step up and do maybe not the popular thing, but we do the right thing to preserve this capital investment that we have in roads, water, wastewater, and do the right thing. And sometimes tough decisions have to be made. So that's my answer, and thank you.
I agree with Mr. Mayor, if I may continue. Then what I may suggest then, we have 2 roundabouts being built supposedly in this township that I were told were $3 million each. Let's cancel that and save $6 million. Let's try to go the other way and not do needless projects that attribute absolutely nothing to the building up of our roads. Putting a roundabout does not increase the integrity of the roads. It just creates a pain in the ass around whatever area they're building it, and it's very expensive. There are things out there that I see that could be cost-cutting, that could be taken out, that are not going to affect anybody. Taking those roundabouts are not going to affect anybody. It's going to put $6 million in this township's pocket that we can use. The other sad thing is, the regional budget represents 54% of the taxes of this township. So when they have a major increase in the region, we get a major hit in our tax bill. The bill for the township is 31%. It's a lot lower, but 54% to the region. So this impact is going to be large on people who can barely survive out there right now. I know I've knocked on the doors. This is not a positive thing. This is not going over well. I can only tell you that based on what I'm living out there. They don't want maggots growing in their garage. They don't want garbage pickup twice a month. And if they happen to be away that day, that means they're getting garbage pickup once a month. They don't like it. And the other thing that can happen out of this, and I said it before, anytime you put hardships on people with regards to garbage, it ends up in the ditches in the country. And that's exactly what's going to happen with this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make this quick. And maybe I can ask it to the Director of Public Works, so through Mr. Mayor to the Director of Public Works. To the best of your knowledge, do roundabouts actually reduce speed, or do they provide any extra safety to roadways?
Through the mayor to Councillor Riley, yes, they're used for traffic calming purposes, and they are safer than traffic signals because the number of conflicts and severity of accidents are less.
Okay, thank you. I think that statement alone indicates the importance that our community actually needs those roundabouts, and so I still stand by those.
And I just wanted to add a follow-up. One of the biggest items, a third of our budget, is policing. And Councillor Witteveen mentioned this fulsomely, but I just want to highlight the fact that 40 boots on the ground are coming to the Niagara region. I know you specifically and Councillor Riley specifically asked for, when a staff sergeant was here, for more policing, and this is the result. We're getting more policing. That request was made loud and clear right across the region, and probably there hasn't been a significant increase in manpower, I think, in 8 years. So there's been an 8-year lull. Of course, as you well know, crime hasn't taken the same passive approach. It's increased, and we're getting a lot of complaints with respect to policing, especially in our rural communities. These 40 boots on the ground divided by 12, or probably more accurately, divided by population means we're going to see a lot more police presence in our own roads, and I think that's a step in the right direction. And to be quite honest, as Councillor Witteveen also pointed out, the previous terms of council took the easy way out, often by depleting reserves and deferring infrastructure needs, and an expensive bird has come home to roost. And had they showed, in my opinion, some respect for the taxpayers by making the wise decisions 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3 years ago of making proper increases of maybe 0.5%, we wouldn't be looking at 6% today. But they decided to take the easy way out, look like champions, and pass the buck down the line. And the current council felt the pinch, and we didn't want to do it anymore. Every one of the councillors and on regional staff or on regional council are also taxpayers. And, we meet our neighbors all the time. So I just wanted to highlight that. One of the key areas of shortfall was policing. And I think that they took a responsible approach of getting boots on the ground, which is what the communities all across the region were asking for. The other thing that I wanted to just, if I could, add, it should be noted, and I want to just get it on the record, Councillor Witteveen and myself fully endorsed the recommendations that the Ombudsman presented to the Regional Council. The Ombudsman report, of course, hit the public at this time. I think there was a lot of shock at the results that were put forward by the Ombudsman, Ontario Ombudsman, Paul Dubé, and the fallout of that were some recommendations which both Councillor Witteveen and myself fully endorsed as appropriate steps for the region to try to close some loops that were being used. Perhaps might be a way of saying it so that this type of corruption won't happen again. But of course, there was a very challenging element that we're determined to covert and compromise the system. Councillor Ganan.
Thank you. Just very quickly, there was a time, my first couple of years involved with council, where we did not have any idea what was going on at the region. So whether you are the bearer of good news, Councillor Witteveen, or not, we really do appreciate the fact that you come monthly to our meetings and you do provide that information to us. I think that we're better off knowing, whether we like hearing about it or not, better that we hear from you than read about it in the newspaper always. And sometimes there were things going on that we were not aware of for a very long time afterwards. So thank you for taking the time to come.
Okay, any others? Councillor Rayner? Oh, Councillor Rayner?
Yeah, I just want to mention that I understand what our Director of Public Works says, that the roundabouts could reduce accident situations, but I'm not aware of Smithville and those two intersections. In all the years I've been here, I've never even seen one accident there. It could be in a preventative nature, not on a needs nature. Usually if it's on a needs nature, they'll put a stoplight there immediately. They haven't even done that yet. So I would think it's on preventive. I'm just saying there's an opportunity to save some money there. And right now, with the high increase, the other thing it's going to do is, with 54% of the tax dollar coming from the region, it makes it more difficult for the municipalities to do their budget. Because if we come up with another 6, that's another big whack. We don't have any flexibility because the region has gobbled up a fair bit of the tax increase. And if we have any size increase at all, it's going to really exponentially increase the hit to the taxpayer. So they've put us in a very awkward spot because we can't go with a 5 or 6 if we needed one because we've already got the big gouge from the region before we even started. So that makes it. And the last comment you made, Mr. Mayor, you said we understand about the tax increases because we are taxpayers ourselves. The difference is you're salaried paid taxpayer. I'm talking about the people who living on fixed income out in the country trying to sustain themselves and their home. There's quite a difference between those people and your situation. Thank you.
Okay. At this time, we're going to do the confirmation of minutes, council minutes special. And this is the one that had Councillor Trobetta's conflict of interest with respect to the confidential minutes of the special meeting. Councillor Jonker, you have a resolution.
I do. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Ganan that the confidential minutes relating to the closed session portion of the November 13th, 2019 special council meeting be accepted, and that the minutes remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with exemptions provided in the Municipality Act.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Jonker and seconded by Councillor Ganan. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. And Councillor Trombetta did not participate. We have the minutes of council regular November 25th. Councillor Riley, you have that resolution.
I do, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Trombetta, that the minutes of the open session portion of the November 25th, 2019 regular council meeting be accepted.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Riley, seconded by Councillor Trombetta. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Moving on, we have public meetings under the Planning Act. Councillor Trombetta, you have that resolution.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Riley that the minutes of the public meeting held on December 9, 2019 under Sections 34 of the Planning Act with respect to zoning bylaw law amendment, Niagara Pallets temporary use file number 1601-0818-19 be accepted.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Trombetta, seconded by Councillor Riley. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Road naming public meeting on December the 9th. Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Trombetta, that the minutes of the public meeting held on December 9th, 2019 with respect to the naming of the street in Spring Creek Manor Plan of Condominium 375 Station Street be accepted.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Riley, seconded by Councillor Trombetta. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. There are no communications this evening, so I'd like to provide a couple of remarks to enter into the record. I really only have two. One of them is the West Lincoln Memorial Hospital. There was a meeting with respect to the hospital attended by myself, CAO Bev Hendry, and the CAO mayors of Grimsby, Lincoln, as well as auxiliary staff, foundation staff, and the and HHS. And the purpose was to start talking about funding. We expect potentially very soon to be moving into some of the next stages of a hospital rebuild, and so some of these discussions have to start taking place. As a result, maybe just as a further note, a resolution, a notice of motion went at the region to discuss a contribution made by the region towards West Lincoln Memorial Hospital. So some of these initial discussions are taking place, and it was good to sit down. We continue to have a high level of agreement and unity with respect to the councils and communities of Lincoln, Grimsby, and West Lincoln. So I feel that we're inching forward. It's no small process, as I'm very aware of. It's probably one of the most complex process I've ever initiated, and so we're quite excited about that. The second thing that I wanted to address was, as you well know, I am the chair of the NPCA, the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, and on Friday we were pleased to announce that we have a new CAO there. This was the result of a long, drawn-out process. Took the better part of 2019 to come to a pool of candidates that were high quality, high caliber, very capable, very experienced, and so we were able to pick that cream of the crop. And I'm pleased to announce that Chandra Sharma is the new CAO of the NPCA, and we look. She had an orientation session with staff this morning. I was able to attend and introduce her to the staff, and I think it's going to be a very, very strong relationship and continue the progress that we've made in 2019 with respect to the challenges that we faced in the NPCA coming into this term. So I couldn't be more pumped. I'm really excited, and so if you catch that enthusiasm, you're catching the right wave. And those conclude my my two remarks that I'd like to make with respect to this council meeting. At this time, we have the report of Committee Planning, Building, Environmental Committee dated December 9. Councillor Ganan, you have that resolution.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Jonker that the minutes of the Planning, Building, Environmental Committee meeting held on December 9th, 2019 be accepted, and that the recommendations contained therein be approved with the exception of items number, and at this point there are none, and that the confidential minutes relating to the closed session portion of the December 9th, 2019 Planning, Building, Environmental Committee meeting be accepted, and that the minutes remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with sections 239 of the Municipal Act.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Ganan and seconded by Councillor Jonker. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. We have Admin, Fire, Finance. Councillor Trombetta, you have that resolution.
Thanks, Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Riley that the minutes of the Administration, Finance, and Fire Committee meeting held on December 9th, 2019 be accepted, and that the recommendations contained thereon being approved with the exceptions of items, and there are none.
Councillors, you heard the resolution moved by Councillor Trombetta, seconded by Councillor Riley. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The notes for reconsideration and notice of motion to rescind are there for your viewing pleasure. Moving on to 14, other business. Item 14.1, recommendation report RFD-CAO-06-2019. Councillor Ganan, you have that resolution.
I do, thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Jonker. One, that report RFD-CAO-06-2019 regarding 2019 to 2029 corporate strategic plan dated December 16th, 2019 be received and approved. And two, that the corporate strategic plan attached to this report as Schedule B be adopted and hereby implemented.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Ganan and seconded by Councillor Jonker. Any comments or questions? Councillor Trombetta.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to...
Mic on, please.
Oh, sorry. Yes, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, I was reading something and sorry, I lost focus there. Before I got some questions that I'd like to ask, so I'd like to ask if Eric could come back up to the podium, if that's possible. Welcome back, Mrs. Zolhowski. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Trumpetta.
If you could bring up your slideshow, what I have in my agenda, I think it's page 87 of 108. It might be the green ones. Is it? Sorry, page 6 of, sorry, I have a long agenda. It's 100 and, the green, well, the ones in my agenda that are green with the nice pictures and the cars and stuff.
Can I clarify?
Sure.
So you're looking at the Schedule B, which is the outward-facing document, and then Aaron had a different presentation, but has the same theme, so maybe you would like to address it by the theme, if that's your point.
Okay, so I respectfully like the strat plan. I have one little tidbit about it, which I don't like. So I shouldn't say there's a tidbit I don't like about it. We have a goal, and in that goal it says West Lincoln has transportation infrastructure that is safe for motorists, cyclists, pedestrians, and networks that are well maintained and connected within our community, within the Niagara, with other Niagara communities and major highways. Under priority initiatives, and this says in brackets, initiate as soon as possible. We have worked with neighboring municipalities to advocate for the escarpment crossing as a means to better connect West Lincoln to major provincial highways. And underneath that, we have another tab saying investigate a Highway 20 bypass to reduce truck traffic in downtown Smithville and improve connections to industrial lands. And then in our short-term initiatives within the next 3 years, it says complete the roads needs study and set targets for maintenance and rehabilitation for improvement of the township of our roads. I don't believe that as a council should be a priority as soon as possible. And the reason why I'm saying is I think these two should be reversed. And the reason why I'm coming up and saying that is that this bypass and also the escarpment crossing, that's a pipe dream away. It's a long time away. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars that's going to be invested if that project does go through. We're talking about an EA process, and through you, Mr. Mayor, to the director, how long is usually an EA process, if they even start it, through your expertise, if possible?
Through the mayor to Councillor Trombetta, this is on. For the Niagara Escarpment Crossing, I would say an EA process could take anywhere from probably, at least 2 years, a year to 2 years. And as far as the Highway 20 bypass, again, probably the same. I just want to note those are regional initiatives.
These are regional issues. So I'm saying to develop a project like that, you're looking at an environmental assessment of 3 years plus. You're looking at obviously a funding fallout. Obviously, we all know what's in the paper, what happened in Hamilton right now. There's a big funding fallout, and they lost something, which was pretty big to that city over there. I find that us as a council should not make that a priority. I'm not saying it shouldn't be there. I think we should work with the region. If the region comes to us, absolutely. I think we should also be an advocate of it. But as a priority set for our staff and us as council, I think that it shouldn't be. I think, completing targets and maintenance and rehabilitation and improvement of our own roads, I think that should be a priority. And the initiatives should be this bypass and the escarpment should be there, but I don't think it should be a priority for West Lincoln. Again, that's a regional issue. We are handcuffed on what the region does. A project like that, it's an essence of property acquisitions, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, and I think in this term of council, I think that we should be an advocate, and I think that we shouldn't have that in there as a priority, and I'd like to see that bumped down. And the other ones that I was a part of campaigning door to door with, and I know you were, Mr. Mayor, and I know Councillor Rayner obviously was, I think that should be bumped up. And I'd like to see that in this strategic plan, and I'd be full support of that. Like I said, I don't want to see that out of there, please, by all means, Council. I'd like to see it bumped down a few steps and one bumped up, if I can, Mr. Mayor. And if I can at the appropriate time, if I have to make an amendment for that, if it can get switched, I don't know if I accept the strategic plan the way it is, it stays that way, and I'll need some clarification later on. So I opened up the dialogue.
Yeah, so I'm going to let Aaron Ross maybe respond to that, and then we go to maybe open up a can of worms here.
Thank you. Thank you. Through you, Mary Bilsma. For sure, we absolutely at the end of the day, we want to make sure council is comfortable and feels a sense of ownership over your final corporate strategic plan. From a process perspective, I can tell you the way things ended up, the reason they ended up, why they ended up. We had color-coded some items, and during that November 20th workshop, had really said the items that were trending green, those little dots that you referred to earlier, Councillor Trombetta, would be identified as priority. Blue would be short-term, yellow, medium-term, red, long-term. So certainly that was the process that came out of this, but at the end of the day, your points are well taken. I certainly recall a comment from your Director of Public Works and Recreation that there is a roads needs study that is, the results are imminent, so certainly that's a consideration as well. I hope that's helpful.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, just may I may. So yeah, I agree with all the dots, but and that did help, you know, itemizing things and putting things forward. But now that we're here at council, I just think that our green dots are the stamp of approval, I guess, as it's moving forward. And I'd like to see that bypass bump down to, I'd like to see it all just take a shift. So the short term goes up to priority, the midterm goes up to short term, and the priority gets bumped down to midterm. Because, you know, it's still saying initiate within the next 5 years, and absolutely, let's initiate, right? But to make it a priority, I think we are, you know, wasting a lot of staff's time and council's time making a regional project a priority of West Lincoln, which is we are really the backseat drivers to this thing. So thank you.
Riley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually wouldn't mind, first of all, thank you, Aaron, through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you, Aaron, for everything you've done. From the first phone call that you placed out to me, I think I mentioned, or maybe I mentioned it Bev afterwards. I really appreciate the energy and the fact that you listened to everything we said, and I think this document is a true reflection of that, not just what Aaron had heard from me, but from everybody. If you get a chance to read the nitty-gritty portion of it, not just the prettier version, I guess I could put it. But a question is, I kind of am more curious about how this is going to be executed. I think that there could be maybe a little bit added information. So when I see priorities initiative, I don't necessarily see this as something that is, at least I'm not taking from it, something that staff's going to go out and every day now they're going to work at achieving this. So how is this going to be executed so we can understand how the priority in the short terms work? Because if, for example, as Councillor Trombetta mentioned, this is bang on. It's a regional issue, so it's not something really too much our staff can do other than support the region and the province where we need to. But I think a little bit extra clarity would be needed to understand how we're going to achieve some of these targets.
So I'm going to go to Aaron first, then I'm going to go to Bev.
Thank you, Mayor Bilsma. Through you, Councillor O'Reilly. I think it's a combination of things. I know really the sense of urgency around completing your strategic plan by the end of the year was so that those items that require resources, that require budget items, that they can be considered within your budget discussions for 2020. So that's one aspect. Of course, there are some items, which Councillor Trombetta rightly pointed out, that are more advocacy related. That still require messaging and partnerships, but perhaps from an administrative perspective aren't as intensive. So that's in terms of, I should probably stop talking and defer to your CAO, but more staff playing a supportive role to councillors who are involved with these other agencies and partners.
Thank you. Further today, Aaron was right on the money in terms of the advocacy piece. And when we think about, this is the way I've been looking at it, at the end of 2020, we're going to have a sort of a report card on what we have done collectively to advance all of these items. So it will be things such as under the priority items, it will be what we did in terms of government relations and advocacy for the escarpment crossing and for starting the process to get the bypass underway. If you don't start talking about these items, they will never happen. And that's why you identified them as high priority, and we have to report back and talk about what we did. It will not be, as Aaron says, it won't be a daily thing where I'm on the phone trying to get the escarpment crossing is done. But when we look at our Roma delegations, well, those sort of guide the items that we're going to go and talk about. when we look at the short-term item of the roads needs study and the work that's going to come out of that, that's going to guide our capital plan. That's going to guide our asset management plan. Those are going to be way more active, and we will have a report card at the end of the year about what we did to further that along. So all of these really give us a good path on to tell us what we should be working on. Or when we get another item that we didn't anticipate as a new initiative that comes to the table, we will bring it to the table and we will say, that's a really important item as well. To staff, maybe you need to move that other item to a lower priority or along into the third category, the longer term initiative. So it's a flexible document, but it really gives us guidance. But think about how you report back and how staff tell you as members of council what we did to further the strategic plan.
So just to further add to that, to be clear, so this is not, in this particular order, this is not necessarily going to take away from, say, the roads needs study in any capacity. This is just keeping this as frontline part of the conversation, right? So I think that is, again, the lack of clarity and understanding that, because I think when we look at this is going to be priority number one, that we're going to do everything first and work our way down. I think it's important that council recognizes that this is just a component among all of these things. All these things are going to be achieved, and we've got to keep advocating for this over the next 10, 15 years, however long it takes to actually see all of this stuff through.
So just the way, and I understand exactly what you're saying, Councillor Trombetta, and you're bang on. If you ignore the word advocate, because the advocacy, so just by way of, as you well know, we've already been advocating. Madam CAO, myself, Councillor Riley, we went to AMO delegations, we went to we've met with MPP Sam Osterhoff, and we've met with Liberal MP Vance Badaway on this advocacy portion, which is kind of immediate, but we really had no mandate to do that. This is giving us the mandate in that sense. So in one sense, by going to talk about escarpment crossing ahead of this, this advocacy portion is validating what we think is a strategic plan. So I don't in sequence. So it's not like we're going to get the roads, the escarpment crossing, and then we're going to start on the roads. I think it's the advocacy, and then.
And I'm not against the advocacy, Mr. Mayor, by all means. I just think the way this is written, in the future, it's going to come up what it looks like we're advocating for regional projects. I'm not saying that we shouldn't, and that's a priority for West Lincoln. It's the wording that's, and listen, we spent 12 hours on wording that whole night. I think we can fix something. I think. Listen, I like the strat plan. I'm not against the strat plan. There's a lot in it for West Lincoln, but this could come back. This could come back and be thrown in our face afterwards, saying, "Listen, you've wasted time. You've prioritized." We have another councillor here as well saying, "Well, I'm not saying using him, but he's not here. But it could come back and saying, well, that's not on the strat plan first priority. Why are we talking about this?" I don't want to see that. So I think that needs to be adjusted. I think in some sense of some wording, Mr. Mayor, I would like to see that. So,
Councillor Ganan.
Please.
Yeah, no, and
Okay.
this side was going.
Sorry, Councillor.
They all did, but part of the problem is the language. I think that maybe Councillor Trombetta is looking at it as first we do this, then we do this, then we do this.
Right.
And in actual fact, if you look at all of those sections that Aaron has presented, perhaps the problem is that it says priority initiatives rather than overarching goals or something. Because if you actually look at each of the divisions, it doesn't matter what they are, whether it's local attractions, the ones that are the next 3 years, that's our mandate. That's why we're here. Those are the things that we need to do. The one that's first in each of the things that says priority initiatives, I think the problem is the wording priority initiatives makes you jump if you aren't aware to first we'll do this and then we'll do this and then we'll do that. But that was never the intent. The intent The intent was, if you look at the short-term ones that say initiate within the next 3 years, those are the ones, by golly, we're going to do while we have 3 years left of this term.
And I agree, I understand
So,
that,
so I
Councillor
think the correction could be not the reordering, but perhaps the renaming, just by,
Well, it's just not the rename.
or
it's
maybe the understanding that that those are the things that we're looking at in terms of building partnerships and the advocacy kinds of things. Because in each of them, it's the same. So, for example, we're not going to jump right away under strategic responsible growth to the one that says facilitate growth that builds complete communities and provides commercial, industrial, and residential balance. Do you think we're ever going to get to that right away before we ever get to encourage a variety of housing options?
The wording,
all of
and
it's the
what I
same.
said, it's about the wording. I never said about the wording, it's not just the word priority, it's also saying initiate as soon as possible.
So maybe just the initiate as soon as possible comes out.
If you're reading that from a standpoint, from a citizen's point of view, so that's telling our citizens that we're initiating this as soon as possible, and then the next 3 years, we're gonna focus in on something else. And then in the next 5 years, we're gonna focus in on something else.
Yeah. But
It's the wording that I'm not comfortable with.
It's not the order of the events. It's the
length.
implication.
That's what I said from the beginning.
Yeah,
It's the
so-
wording that I have the
Yeah,
issue.
so I think the overarching thing, the goals that we want to connect elsewhere, in each of those six things, each of those areas, it's the same problem. If you just take out that line, then it all makes more sense, because the overall thing that we're thinking about all the while we're doing this in the next 5, 10, 15 years, those goals are there, but it doesn't mean we're not doing the immediate.
If that would say advocate initiatives, I would have no problem with it. I would be moving on. I wouldn't be speaking right now. But because it says priority initiatives, initiate as soon as possible, I have problems with that wording, and I'm not comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Councillor Jonker.
The way I read it is priority. We're doing it already. We're advocating for it, right? Same with, we've investigated, we've kind of looked at, hey, can we look at getting a bypass? There's nothing in here that's saying to me, this is getting done. It's the fact that we are advocating for it. This is a priority because it's advocating. That's the big word here. And investigating, the big word here. And I read it and I'm fine with this because we're actually doing this already.
And I understand that, but again,
to me, it's
Councillor Jonker, you're right, but again, it's also staff's time that is getting focused in on regional projects that's not West Lincoln projects. That, again, we're the backseat drivers to the region. And I don't want to show the public, to myself, wasting tax dollars on a regional project that's a pipeline dream away, because again, an EA process hasn't started. Again, no property acquisitions have been, and no letters of intent has been signed. So I don't want to show the public saying, well, my priority was to waste staff's time for a regional project that might not happen. It's the wording that I'm not comfortable with.
Yeah. Can I just say that I'll tell you about an event that took place. Mayor of Grimsby, councillor from Grimsby, CAO from Grimsby, Lincoln, Mayor Lincoln, and Carolyn Riel from the region. We met in Lincoln. And the municipal, as you said, it's kind of a regional initiative. And it's going to be a provincial and hopefully, right? We sat down with the region. I think even Director of Public Works was there. Madam CEO, you were, okay. Councillor Woodavine, were you there? Yes, Councillor Woodavine was there. Good. I have a witness. It took place. I'm not making this up. We advocated for to get that EA money. So the region has come forward. So you're right in saying that the region won't act in a certain direction unless we advocate. We wanted more cops. We ask. We advocate for more cops. We get more cops. That's how those upper tier municipalities, you have to engage them in conversation. So you have to go to AMO and do delegations. You have to go to Roma and do delegations, which we have done. Because it's their responsibility to do it, as you have very accurately pointed out, but you get it done by asking them. And so that's the key word, and Councillor Jonker is pointed it out. Councillor Ginan has pointed out it's that advocate word, that the priority is to, because as you rightly put it, it's going to take, maybe it's a pipe dream away, maybe it's 10 years away, maybe it's 6 years away, but if it's a priority of this council, somebody has to advocate, because it's on the books for 40 years, but it seems to be nobody advocating for it.
So maybe I'm asking for a favor, Mr. Mayor. I need
Yeah.
some wording to change it to make me more
Okay,
comfortable.
can you think about that? Just
If you
kind of
guys
look-
can come up with something to make me like, I like the word advocate.
Yeah.
I'm totally great with it. If you could think of a word that makes me feel comfortable, Mr. Mayor, I'm looking for that.
Okay,
to
good.
be comfortable.
Because I'm gonna go to my wordsmiths on this side, because I'm an engineer. We don't always. Councillor Riley, and no, actually, you know what? Before I go to you, Councillor Rayner, you had a comment.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Mike, please.
The roads need study is back. And it just, how do I put this? I'd like to see everything on an even playing field. If we're gonna do something a certain way, then we should be consistent in the way we do it and everything else we do. The road need study seems to be this great big.
No, it's me.
Oh, yeah, sorry. This road needs study seems to be this big thing over the head of the people who live in the country with regards to trying to get their roads done. The initial road needs study did not like surface treatment, AKA tar and chipping. And it made it clear that it's not a good investment. We've got another road needs study coming up. So we're following a road needs study. We've got a little instruction or Bible, whatever you want to call it. But then we have the MERS, and that went through without a lot of details. And even when I suggested that what's the cost to operate this, don't worry about it. And then last year, half our budget went to keep the thing afloat. But we don't seem to treat the roads in the country the same way and say, let's go ahead and do it. We have to go through a process of a road needs study and a justification and a costing and how long it's going to last and all the rest. When in the past, as I've mentioned before, under Councillor Trombetta's mom when she was mayor, we did a lot of roads out there, basically the same way we built this new MERS, and we haven't had a problem with it, and we're happy. All of a sudden, we're stuck with a regulated procedure to try to go ahead, and in the last 9 years, if I can use a Canadian term, a millimeter, we haven't had a millimeter of mud road done, but we've spent a crap load of money on everything else that wasn't regulated like our roads. I just want something in this that would say, and Mr. Mayor, you knocked on doors promising and pledging that we're going to get something done. Last year we didn't. Here we come with another year. I was told basically that in order to keep the MERS afloat for another year, we may have to come up with more money off the budget again. That's money that could have been used to do the roads. Where are we going to get to the point where we're going to get something out in the country? We've waited 9 years, and I haven't got a millimeter.
Okay.
So this is what
So-
I'm saying. We need consistency. Where can we draw the line on this and saying, regardless of this road needs study, we got to get something done out there. Because these people who live in the country are still a vital part of the township of West Lincoln and a heavy tax contributor. Give us something.
Yeah. I'm just gonna leave that. Okay, unless somebody else wants to weigh in here.
I think with the strategic plan, the way I'd like to see it bumped up, it does show that, listen, with this strategic plan gets approved tonight, when we're talking about getting something done, if someone wants to, how do I put it? Let's say someone decides to come forward and tries to build a building. We can refer back and say, sorry, it's not our strategic plan. Our strategic plan says to create a target, a proactive approach. No, that's the wrong one. Sorry. Sorry.
It's in there.
It's in there. Sorry. So we can go back and I can voice up as a councillor now and say, listen, we did a strategic plan. We are a part of this meeting. My strategic plan that I was a part of that I voted for said to complete a roads needs study and set targets for the maintenance, rehabilitation, and improvement of township roads. With that in there, which I want to see it bumped up, it does make that a target so we can do as a council. And we've said it. So anytime someone says, and sorry, I'm gonna use an example. Counselor comes beside me and says, hey, listen, I'm thinking about doing a park. Well, we can refer back and say, sorry, it's not in our
Not in this-
strategic plan.
Not in this term, yeah.
Not in this term, our road is in our strategic plan, and where's our road? So luckily with this strategic plan, it could come forward and we could see sort of what he's asking for, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm kind of wondering if, I understand it's the wording, but like, given the current language there with priorities, if we change it to like ongoing initiatives, because a lot of this stuff that's in priorities is stuff that's already ongoing. And I think that's the confusion. I think that we could correct that, and that way there is no misinterpretation. The short term is what's going to be covered in the remainder of the term. And so those are initiatives that we haven't necessarily initiated, I guess, just yet, but we're in the process about to initiate, and I think that would clean the language up, I assume to the liking of Councillor Trombetta's.
Ongoing initiative, an ongoing initiative, not initiate as soon as possible, like I'd like to see that just removed, but an ongoing initiative, like or an advocate, an ongoing initiative, or,
Okay.
Councilman Mann, you have any?
Advocacy, you could put that ongoing
Advocacy.
initiatives and
I think
advocacy.
it's really consistent with all of the sections.
I would like to
No.
even say advocate as soon as possible, like or, I don't know, I just don't like the soon as possible, sorry.
All right, Councillor, or no, my goodness, Madam CAO. Yeah.
I'm listening with great intent here to get this figured out for you. So when you look at the patterns, like each of the goals don't necessarily have priority initiatives. It was the way they came out through the process. So one thing that you could think about would be to remove the word priority initiatives, and if you were wanting to, under the first theme of strong transportation networks, you could have the first one as complete the roads needs study under short-term initiatives, and then you could include the other two, and the other two of the priority initiatives does talk about advocating. Like the wording, I think, was quite intentional when we were going through the process. You aren't saying what you're doing.
Can we flip the two?
Sure. Right.
Perfect.
All right.
If you get council's approval.
Yeah.
Is it necessary to flip, or again, is there still going to be confusion in the language? Because right now, if it's not just one section, there's 5, 6 different sections here. I feel like we're changing the terminology of what is being initiated and what's going on. I don't know if that clarifies anything, personally. I think you're just moving one thing around for another. So
Okay, I'm going to let
maybe-
Aaron, because you're, go ahead, the author, go ahead.
Thank you. No, you, Mayor Bilsma, you're the authors,
Okay,
just the
so-
pen. So in terms of Councillor Riley's suggestion, in viewing all of them, to keep the consistency ongoing, I think, and I look to the CAO, it would be accurate in terms of all of the initiatives under here, whether you're looking at strategic responsible growth. I know in speaking with your Director of Planning, facilitating growth that builds complete communities is part of the business. And I think that applies in every other area where priority initiatives are listed. I know programming for the West Lincoln Community Center, now that it's constructed, is something that the staff is dealing with. So if council is okay with assessing ongoing initiatives as a friendly amendment, I think that would be true to the discussions that you had on October 8th and November 20th.
Would we be comfortable with a friendly amendment of the word ongoing? Yep.
So, I said, don't forget that initiate as soon as possible is
Yeah.
also bothering me.
Yeah.
Eliminate that, ongoing initiatives, perfect.
Okay.
I don't want her to change the whole, right?
No.
That's why
Like,
I said let's just flip
we're
it.
talking about the 70% rule and
Yes.
all of those kind of things, and we're really, really close, Aaron. We're really, really close.
I got one more
I
thing.
think one of the Councillor Rayner's a little bit upset because I think he's losing a bet to the clerk. But anyways,
Sorry. I didn't see, I know how we had it was the park in Caister. I didn't see that. Is that got put to the capital, Mr. Mayor? No, I didn't see it. I missed it. Okay. Sorry, I missed it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's
Oh, sorry, it's
under
there.
4 under local attractions.
Okay, sorry, my mistake. I did miss it. Okay, so I've seen that there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If we could see that changed,
yeah.
that'd be great. I'm happy.
I'll just make one last comment. Overall, I didn't mention this in the beginning, but I was very impressed with the whole document, how it's put together. I was very unfamiliar with what it was going to look like. I think this is an excellent plan for what it's worth. I realize this is just kind of like the final hour amendments and some concerns of how it could be misinterpreted, but I do believe this is an excellent plan for providing a safer, a more financially responsible future for our community and supporting our current residents, as well as promoting the innovation of growth in business and other industries. So I do think council should consider approving this.
And I just wanted to get on the record that I appreciate that this particular plan is not off flying at 30,000 feet. It's really getting into some brass tacks, which was one of my initial concerns with going through the process. I'm glad that we got actually quite granular and got something that very recognizable to the citizens. And I see every one of the participants, I see their fingerprints on it. So I'm very, very pleased that you're able to capture that. Any other comments on the, Councillor Ganan? I just turned it off there.
I'm on. I turned it off. Okay, so just further to just generally how the township has been run in the last little while, I have found that many times we have been reactive to situations. My prior life was all about long-range planning, and so I really see this as an excellent opportunity for the municipality to be really looking ahead and making some plans ahead. It doesn't mean they're all must be etched in granite, but I think the fact that you've created a document for us that we can live with and work with is really commendable. So thank you very much.
Okay, so we have that. We should do the amendment, yeah. So, we nailed down some wording. We talked about the word ongoing is in there.
Ongoing to put in, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to see an amendment to the strategic plan that under section 1,
I think it'd be all sections.
all sections?
For consistency.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're going to have that consistency.
But will I still get the initiate as soon as possible out? That's what I'm looking at. That's what I've asked.
Yeah, so I think we have to make the amendment to all sections to have the word priority removed and replaced with ongoing, and the removal of.
I'm just saying, if
as soon as possible. I think
just so we know, Mr. Mayor, and the reason why is if when this gets issued to the public takes a look at it, they're going to read it. The way they would read is that our priority is to initiate as soon as possible, is to do all this stuff. But again, this is a pipe dream away. But again, it takes away from West Lincoln. The wording is just.
Okay, so now I'm going to push back just a little bit.
Go ahead.
Because, and it has to do with the fact that a project so big as the Escarpment Crossing for me and my campaign as mayor was very much a priority. I had no illusions that I was going to see an escarpment crossing by the end of the term. No illusions at all. But for 45 years, this has been on the books. And in discussions with developers and discussions with citizens who are frustrated with all the garbage trucks going through the downtown core, and we had to do something with respect to that. So
then why not, sorry, just to interrupt, Mr. Mayor, why advocate for that, not the Mid-Peninsula Corridor?
okay, so from a personal perspective, I don't think that the Mid-Peninsula Corridor is necessarily the first step in alleviating our concerns with our industry, like the, industries like, say, Standpack, and they're trying to get their product to the QEW safely. All right? Our residents are tired of trucks going through the downtown core.
But that's the bypass, yeah.
That's the bypass. So there's like a 1-2 punch here. So my point is, if nobody's advocating for it, when will it get done? Well, for 45 years, nobody's advocated for it. We've all talked about it. But so a priority for me was to start the advocacy. So we have met with infrastructure, finance, transportation, M&R, environment, on the
But that is multi-mayor's roles to do those things.
Correct.
It's not so much council's role to do those things. Multi-mayor's roles are to get together to advocate for something which has been done in the past.
Yeah.
And I'm not against that. And that's what
Yeah.
mayors do in many municipalities. but that's not a priority for council. That's a priority for the mayors for their municipalities.
I guess I would, from a personal perspective, as a mayor of the municipality who doesn't act alone but acts on behalf of council, I'd like to see that the council shares my vision for North-South, because or else I'm a renegade.
And we're behind you to advocate, but to make it a priority for us, that is
Yeah.
my issue.
Okay, but shouldn't it be a priority to advocate?
What's the wording? Well,
Councilor Gannon.
So further to that, it is a priority if you live in town, because the people who live in town were very vocal about the trucks going through. So I'm going to suggest that we use your ongoing that you liked, but keep priority and just call it ongoing priorities, but take out the initiate as soon as possible.
All right. She's writing it out? Okay, good. So, and we're going to do that in the 5 sections so that they all speak the same way. Yeah. Hey. Yeah. And do I have, Councilor Riley will second that? Any final
can someone just read
discussions?
it out to me?
Yeah, we will. She's printed.
Oh, I didn't know we had a printer.
Yeah, no, we're all tech. It's all the new system.
Nice.
eScribe helps us. Look at that. Councillor Trombetta, you have an amendment?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just going to read this right now. Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Riley that the word priority initiatives, as noted in Schedule B of the Township Strategic Plan, specifically under the 6 themes, be changed to ongoing initiatives, and that the bracket under priority initiatives reads, did I read it? Ongoing priority. Okay, sure. I'll put in the word priorities.
That way it addresses the main issue of it being important in terms of our overall West Lincoln.
Sure. Just 1 second there, Councilor Gannett. Oh, no, that's fine. Sorry. I don't know why I touched that. Anyways, sorry. Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Riley that the word priority initiatives as noted in Schedule B being in the Township Strategic Plan, specifically under each of the 6 items, be changed to ongoing priorities, and that the bracket under priority initiatives, which reads initiate as soon as possible, be removed. I'm happy with that, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Any other comments or questions on that amendment? All those in favor of the amendment? And that amendment is carried. We have the main carried. The main strat plan. I'm going to ask the question. Are all those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Yeah. Aaron Ohoski, thank you very much.
Thank you.
For your patience. Anyways. The other business, 4.2, clerk, rescheduling of January 20th, 2020, admin, fire, finance committee. Councilor Chalker, you have a resolution there.
Yes, moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Gannan, that due to the ROMA conference being held from January 19th to the 21st, 2020, and in the absence of Mayor Bilsma, Councilor Riley, and the CAO, the January 20th, 2020 Administration, Finance, Fire Committee meeting and the Public Works, Recreation, Arena Committee meetings be scheduled to Tuesday, January 21st, 2020 at 6:30. I like it because that's my birthday, so I'll be home for my birthday.
The 20th.
The 20th.
Yeah, good.
Just for you.
So he's going to vote in favor. Moved by Councillor Jonker, seconded by Councillor Gannan. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Councillor Riley, you have the next resolution on the appointing of a presiding chair.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess moved by myself, second by Councillor Ganan, that due to the anticipated absence of the Administration, Finance, Fire Committee Chair and Vice Chair during the month of January 2020, that blank be appointed as presiding chair at any Administration, Fire, Finance Committee and or Budget Committee meetings held in January for which either is absent from. My apologies on that.
Councillors, I'd like to recommend Councillor Riley. He did approach me and said he'd be willing to practice his chairing capabilities. Are there any?
Yes, unless anybody else has any objection, I don't mind taking that on just for the little extra practice.
Councillor Riley would like to continue because I've done it for 5 years and I'm tired of it. If you would like to take it, that would be nice.
Anyways. Okay. Any comments or questions? I'm going to put the Councillor Riley in there. All those in favor? And that's carried. Any members of the council, any remarks that they would like to state? Councillor Jonker.
Yeah, a couple things that I would like to pass on from the West Lincoln Chamber of Commerce. First of all, a big thanks to the staff and the great help that they received at the arena for the home show. They definitely were impressed with the facility, and we're very happy that they decided to hold that there. They had between 450 to 500 people go through the gym there, 37 vendors. So they were very appreciative of the staff helping them set up the first time there, and they were really impressed with our staff. So if you could pass it on to staff somehow, Director of Public Works, that'd be appreciated. And also, they did also the insurance cost. The vendors were just, wow, this is great how and we had that presentation, right? So that's really was appreciated as well. And then also, I would just actually like to thank the West Lincoln Chamber of Commerce for, along with the Smithville Girl Guides, for collecting for the Toonie for toys. During the parade, they were able to collect $1,715.82 on that bottle drive, just at the parade. They're still waiting to get the count from all the bottles that they put out in the community. So that was definitely appreciated. And also, I know we discussed a little bit of, the board did, of what we can collect for as well, besides doing this, and the fort thing did come up, so I think that'll be something that is what we can carry that on, right? Like to support the community in that way. There's more than just a few things. So, and then also, I guess, may you all have a blessed Christmas, and we'll see you in the new year. Look forward to, yeah, we'll see you in the new year somewhere. Yeah, so that's it.
Okay, I have a few things as well. First of all, I'd like to point out that West Lincoln Community Care had their store that they ran last week with a huge number of generous donations. The more I have gone through this Christmas season, the more I realize what a wonderful, caring community we live in. I never really doubted it, but boy, they have sort of risen. The cream has come to the top this year, so to speak. A good example of that was all of those donations that came in all various forms through the parade for community care, as well as people who took on sponsoring families and just making general donations to community care. A prime example of that was a dinner held last Friday evening at the Silverdale Hall. The mayor was in attendance for the first time. We were glad to have him there. The people in the Silverdale Hall started about 10 years ago, I think, with a free dinner. And I mentioned it over the last couple of years as well. This free dinner is a wonderful turkey dinner put on. They have a maximum of 75 people who are on the list to come. They do not sell tickets, but you make a donation to West Lincoln Community Care for the value of your dinner and whatever you feel you want to put forward. John and I attended the first one, and we were thrilled that they donated about $1,400. I could hardly believe when they announced that it was over $4,200 on Friday night past. So the 73 or 4 people who were there certainly dug deeply and listened to their hearts and gave very generously to community care. So moving on, our little Kiwanis Club had a carol sing. Probably about 35 or 40 people. Certainly the people who came out appreciated the laughter and the humor and getting together for just a small scale thing. And speaking of Kiwanis, the blood donor clinic is being hosted by Kiwanis as well. It will be held at the high school, the Christian high school, and it's this Friday. If you haven't given blood before and you feel that that's a way that you'd like to try to give back, that would be great. If you've been remiss in giving blood for a while and you're thinking that you might want to give it a go, that's also good. So it's anytime between 3 and 8. And that's this Friday. And I also would like to take this opportunity to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and all the very best for 2020. Thank you.
Councillor Riley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Trying to figure out what I can mention that hasn't covered. Oh my goodness. I think it's been a year ago today since my first council meeting, I should say. Sorry. And so what an eye-opening experience it's been. I want to thank everybody, staff, community, council members, yourself, Mr. Mayor, it's been an uphill learning curve for me. And so there's always something new and something inspiring that kind of comes down my way. So I'm very inspired to see what the next few years are going to look like. More importantly, what 2020 is going to look like. I won't necessarily go too far into too many things other than I do want to thank the mayor and I guess Councillor Witteveen for endorsing the Ombudsman report. I think that's a great step forward as far as holding former staff and council members and showing that we are going to try to hold people accountable and stand behind what we said, not just through the campaign days, but actually acting or giving things in action. So I think that's an excellent step forward at the council, and I respect all those who also supported that at the region. And then another thing I was going to mention just real briefly is, and I didn't mention it last time, but I want to thank, I don't know how, with the staff appreciation, I don't think it ever goes, it can never be acknowledged enough in the sense of what our staff does for our community and how supportive they are. And I think it's very easy, as Councillor Ganam mentions earlier, we can often get in situations where it's more reacting to the situation versus trying to be proactive and get ahead of it. And I think our staff really doesn't get enough of a pat on the back for all the hard work and I guess pain aches that come with the job. So we do appreciate everything you guys do, and I also thank you for tolerating me for the last year and all my zillion of questions and learning as I go. But I did also want to mention that the fort reveal is, from my understanding, this Thursday. Unfortunately, I will not be able to be in attendance. I am attending a conference regarding ending homelessness. I'm very intrigued to hear what all that's about, and unfortunately that was scheduled before I knew about the timing and the date there, but from my understanding, I think the mayor and at least our CAO may be in attendance, or other staff members, I'm not too sure, so I'm very eager to see how that all plays out. And again, just I want to wish everyone safe and happy holidays through now, and look forward to seeing everyone in 2020, and I guess just come prepared to work. I'm looking forward to it, so thank you.
Councillor Trombetta?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Everybody in the gallery that came out, Sir Ganan, Claus, and also Albert, thanks for coming out. You guys are here a lot, and just want to say thanks and hopefully have a good holiday. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Councillor Rayner?
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Brownlee, we have been very patient and tolerant with you.
Oh my goodness, of all the...
You are getting there. And I also want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you.
Madam CAO?
Yes, it's been quite a year. I was reflecting on our first council meeting last year, and we've come a long way, baby. And I think it's a result of a lot of hard work and input, a lot of good council staff relations, council orientation, and I think our strategic plan, I think will guide us really well through the rest of this term. And I think we should also make sure that we keep looking at it to make sure it's accurate. And so to staff and senior staff and to council for their input and enthusiasm and all the hard, long hours going through that, I really do appreciate that. So that's it for now. I will say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year as well to everybody.
Madam Clerk? Anything? Okay. Does any member of council have a new item of business that requires immediate attention and direction from council? Councillor Rayner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Trombetta that a new item of business be introduced, being Niagara Region approval to go to a bi-weekly trash collection, which will permit 2 garbage bags containers being collected at the curbside every other week instead of 1 container currently being picked up on a weekly basis.
Any discussion on this item? Oh, sorry. Moved by Councilor Rayner, seconded by Councilor Trombetta. Any comments or questions? All those in favor? And opposed? Well, okay, sorry. So,
Oh,
that a new item, so.
why won't
yeah.
we have comments or questions?
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay, sorry. I'm sorry, my mistake, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, sorry.
Okay, so I'm going to read it now that we're confused. Moved by Councilor Rayner, seconded by Councilor Trombetta, that a new item of business be introduced, being the Niagara Region approval to go to bi-weekly trash collection, which will permit 2 garbage containers being collected at the curbside every other week instead of 1 container currently being picked up on a weekly basis. Any comments or questions?
We'll hear them soon.
All those in favor? And opposed? Okay, and that's carried. Yep. All right. Councilor Rayner, you have a resolution you'd like to bring forward for consideration.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. A little over a week ago, I went to...
No. So you have to read it.
Oh, you want me to read this?
Yeah, you have to read it, and then we can have the discussion.
And then we'll done. All right, sorry. Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Trombetta that the township staff be and hereby directed to contact the mayor and staff of the city of Niagara Falls to obtain information relating to the city's proposal to explore an option that will allow the city, being a local municipality in the Niagara region, to decide its own baseline level of waste collection service. You're still learning something too, eh, Councilor Rayner? Yeah, there we go. Any, you've moved by Councilor Rayner, seconded by Councilor Trombetta. Any comments or questions? Councilor Rayner. Thank you,
And then
Mr.
Councilor
Mayor.
Trombetta.
A week ago last Saturday, I attended the NPEI Christmas dinner in Niagara Falls, and I had the privilege of sitting beside the mayor of Niagara Falls for 3 to 4 hours, Jim Diodati. And we had quite a discussion of a number of topics, and one of them that came up was the region biweekly garbage collection. He is adamantly opposed to it, and he feels it is not fair to the constituents of Niagara Falls that, as he puts it, they have maggots growing in their garage until such time as the region can pick up the garbage. He has investigated it, he has looked at legal, and he has found a system that will pick up the garbage on a weekly basis, do it cheaper than it is now, and more efficiently. He mentioned it to me. He said if you would like more information, he would be pleased to pass it on. Other municipalities have also been contacting him. He said, I don't know if you're aware or not. He said, but there's also a 35% increase over the next 3 years in your biweekly garbage pickup that wasn't mentioned. So he said, if you want to get on board and find out the information, bring this to staff. If they would like to investigate the feasibility of weekly garbage pickup, which I know people want, and we can do it cheaper than we're actually doing it now, it certainly, I thought, would be something important to bring to the attention of council, that they may wish to have staff contact the mayor and the staff of Niagara Falls to investigate the feasibility if it is something that can be worked out. He made it very clear that he felt legally that that he was not bound to the region on this through legal counsel, and he would like to proceed, but he would also be interested, if other municipalities are interested, in doing what should be done to the taxpayers, and that's not taking away something of that magnitude that, as he says, would result in maggots growing in their garage until such time as their next pickup. So I'm bringing this forward to council, saying my suggestion would be there's no harm in bringing it to our staff to contact Niagara Falls, have staff do an investigation at that point, and bring it back to council or committee as an update to see if it is feasible and practical to be utilized for the Township of West Lincoln.
Councillor Riley? Oh, sorry, my mistake. Councillor Riley, then Councillor Trombetta.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'll get it right
Appreciate
this time.
Okay. And so, I guess where to start, I have no problem with this. I think it never hurts to ask as far as getting clarity of information. What my only, or not my only concern, but one concern would be not committing to anything financially. I imagine that there must be some kind of, if there's consulting with legal, you know, they must be getting advice outside the area, as imagine, instead of locally. So I would be curious to see what that looks like. At the same time, I also have no idea like what that, like what we can actually do in terms of this being a regional issue. If maybe the city of Niagara Falls is just looking for a letter of support, like we often do when we see these things circulate, I don't think there's any harm in that. One thing I can say is that our residents are not happy about the biweekly. I do think a big part of that happens to be the timeline in which they've given us to have them adapt, not just that, but also a new contractor who's going to be learning the routes, as well as going this bi-weekly approach. And, you know, I had some concerns that I mentioned previously regarding that. So again, I think I would endorse seeing if staff could investigate and look into, and when I say investigate, I just mean following up maybe with the lead that Councillor Rayner may have, and seeing what information they're willing to share, that could be presented at us at a later date, and maybe go from there.
Councillor Trombetta.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I don't have a problem with it going to staff to take a look at it, but I don't want to see it, we just complained about a regional increase. I don't want to see us getting double dose of anything. So I don't have a problem with staff saying, okay, Mayor Diodati, what are you coming up with? How do you think it's going to save the taxpayers' dollars by eliminating the region altogether, which I highly doubt that's going to happen, and just figure out a loophole to get our waste collected without the region helping out, without it costing us money. But he's got something he's thinking of, and it doesn't hurt to hear what he's talking about, but as long as it's not going to cost us any money, I don't have a problem hearing what the idea is and coming back to council. So I'll support it as well, Mr. Mayor.
I like Mayor Diodati, by the way, but we differ on a number of things often. Anyways, anybody on this side? Okay, I'm going to ask all those in favor and opposed, and that's carried. As long as it doesn't cost anything, right, folks?
It doesn't hurt to investigate.
All right. Bylaws. Councillor Trombetta, you have the resolution.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Riley, that leave be granted to introduce bylaws 2019-116, 117, 118, 119, 120, 121, and 122, and that the same shall be considered to be read a first, second, and third time with one reading and hereby adopted, and the mayor and clerk be hereby authorized to sign affix to a corporate seal thereto, any rule to the council to the contrary notwithstanding.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Trombetta, seconded by Councillor Riley. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Councillor Ganane, you have a resolution to go into closed session.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Jonker that the next portion of this meeting be closed to the public to consider the following pursuant to Section 239, subsection 2 of the Municipal Act 2001. A, CAO Bev Hendry, re-solicitor client advice / legal matter, industrial wind turbine project. Applicable closed session exemptions. 1, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board. 2, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. And 3, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Ganane, seconded by Councillor Jonker. Any comments or questions? All those in favor? And that's carried. We do now move into close. Thank you very much for all those in attendance. Have a safe